All right, hello, hello. This is Ravi de Lobos, and I'm starting a new year of episodes of something I'm calling the Future in Tech. It should be pretty exciting. I'm really excited about what's happening this next year in technology, and I feel like this year is going to be the year that computers and people work together to change how everything works. So I'm super excited for it to happen now. We're seeing a lot of progress in things like Chat GPT and AI. How do you prepare, though, for a future, though, in which computers are going to be doing some of the work that you're already doing right now? So today in this first episode of the Future of Tech, I talked to a couple of people who are charting out and defining how people train and prepare for that future. So these are two of my friends that you might be familiar with. Natalie Powell and Simon St. Laurent. They are content managers at LinkedIn Learning, whose job is literally to figure out what people should be training for in this next year. So that's a pretty good goal. How's it going, my friends?
It's going well, thanks.
Super.
So far, so good.
You get, yeah. Isn't it strange, like, to have that responsibility? Like, you guys really have to know what's happening, and even before people know what they need, kind of prep things for this next year.
Oh yeah, I mean we'll get into it more a little bit later, but I don't even think the industry knows sometimes. And so
Right.
it is a fun challenge watching it as it happens live.
Yeah. So your focus, Natalie, is on artificial intelligence, machine learning, software architecture, and the Internet of Things. That's a lot of stuff to keep track on. And of course, Simon is a developer, and you focus on web development and emerging technologies, which is usually my sort of spot in the library. That's the sort of stuff that I do. So as usual, I did a poll, and you can go to this URL down here. And actually, that's not the right URL, but you can go to go.rabo.org and actually look at this poll. I'm going to delete this. Go.rabo.org slash TFIT dash poll dash EPO1. Or you could just go to my profile and get this. What in 2023, what will you use generative AI like Chat GPT, Open AI, Hugging Face, and others for? I was sort of surprised. I don't know what you guys think about this result, but I was kind of surprised that everybody picked programming. I know that most of my audience are developers, but I feel like I'm using it more for writing right now. What do you guys think?
Most of what I've seen people really using it for is the artwork piece. So,
Right?
I know about GitHub Copilot. It's definitely options for programming, but the piece that I'm seeing huge enthusiasm for is the pictures.
Yeah, they are. What about you, Natalie?
I agree with Simon, but I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the result of this poll because when I think about generative AI and the impact it's going to have on the future, I think it's going to be programming heavily so. So I'm glad other people agree and that it is not centered around, will generative AI take my job sort of a
Yeah, I wonder.
conversation.
Sometimes some of these polls have like what people think they're going to be using it for versus what they end up using it for. I know that I have used it for programming quite a bit. I do have Copilot, and I've been using it for a while. Super helpful. But I feel like for me, the writing is definitely the number one thing. It's probably because English isn't my first language. So I really feel like I need a little bit of assistance, and it's great for research. I use it a lot for summarizing stories. So if I want to like grab an article and figure out the crux of what it says, I just paste it in ChatGPT, and very quickly I can tell it to, prep a tweet for me or just summarize everything really quick, and it's able to do that pretty effectively. So as usual, you can also ask questions in the chat, and we'll be getting to those a little bit later in the show. So make sure you take advantage of that. So let's get straight to the interview sections. Feel free to comment on each other's questions. I'm going to direct them to individual people, but feel free to jump in. So Natalie, as content managers, you have to look into the future. But a lot of times I figure you probably look at the past before you kind of decide what's going to be important in the future. So having done that, what do you think is the big things that happen in 2022 that are going to have sort of the biggest effect on this new year?
That's a great question. I think the biggest impact that we're going to see come out of 2022 to is the passing of the legislation for the AI Act out of the
Hmm.
EU. I think what this means is that in 2023, we're going to see a lot more frameworks and regulations play out. What I like to tell people who kind of are unfamiliar with this is it's very similar to GDPR. What GDPR was for data, the AI Act is going to be for AI. And what this means is that any organization that wants to do work globally and specifically within Europe are going to have to comply with certain regulations. Those aren't set yet, but it's going to make a huge impact on how organizations integrate AI into their product, into their workflow, how they interact with customers, things like that.
How does this sort of thing affect sort of the web industry, Simon? What sort of things are you seeing there?
I mean, so far I'm seeing. Well, I'm actually a little worried that we're going to see a lot of Chat GPT used for SEO farms, but I
Hmm.
think that's been happening for a while, just with lower quality AI, and I guess hopefully at least the links will be better as a result. Um, I think on the web space, I'm more keeping an eye out for kind of the decentralization story. We've been talking about it in terms of Web3 in the last couple of months. That's kind of shifted to Mastodon, which is actually where I'm finding a lot of AI generated art. So I think all of these different pieces are going to weave together over time.
That's really interesting. And we saw that State of JS survey. What did you think about how the different frameworks are doing maybe this year as opposed to like what happened last year with those?
Um, it seems like everybody wants Svelte, but I can't actually find a lot of people using it in the kinds of projects I'm usually hunting for. I loved that they mixed it up so that you could sort of see in one big table like all of these different categories of tools and how much people wanted them. That was
Hmm.
actually kind of a nice change. Um, I think everyone is sort of waiting to see what comes after React's dominance.
Hmm.
Um, I keep thinking something new must come along and it will all change. And for a while, I thought it'd be Svelte. For a while, I thought it'd be Vue. And React just keeps going along. And it was in the A tier for the state of 2022, not the S tier. It's not the top of the line for people's desires, but um, yeah, I kind of feel like we've been in the most stable period I've seen for the last 4 or 5 years, and I keep wondering if the ice is going to break and things will change.
Yeah, it's definitely a really interesting spot to look at. I mean, because I think so many of these other technologies, like other Chat GPT things, they really all start on the web, or at least that's where the interfaces are. So that's pretty interesting. So say that you're a developer in school about to graduate. What do you do to prepare? And this can go to either one of you, I think. Like, what do you do to prepare? What do you think companies will maybe looking for with all these new technologies that we have?
So, really broadly speaking, I think there are kind of two ways that people approach this. Um, you can assemble like the checklist of skills that you think are most in demand and that companies are seeking. You read a lot of ads, you that for jobs that you want, you make sure you have that lineup of skills. I remember when I was first doing web development as a career, I had a job interview where the screening question was how do you assign a variable value in JavaScript? I was like, why are they asking me this? But luckily, I had that specific bit of knowledge, and I was ready to go with the parts that they needed that day. But in the end, I took a job with a company that was taking a different approach, where they wanted to make sure that I could learn, that I could pick up new things quickly, that whatever their clients requested that week, I could come up with an answer in a few hours. So I think it's definitely worth having that like checklist, but that checklist is constantly going to change. This week, you may get a lot of questions about ChatGPT. Next week, it may be on to the next big AI adventure. Um, in the long run, I think figuring out how to fit into a variety of situations is helpful. It's been helpful with sort of tech so far, and I think it's going to become actually much more important as the AI conversation picks up further.
Hmm. So sort of be flexible. I mean, this is a moving target. It's
Yeah,
basically what you mean. Yeah. What do you think about
always
that, Natalie? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Always.
always be learning. It's always going to be something new.
That's a good point. What do you think about this, Natalie? What
I
would you
agree.
tell somebody, yeah, to learn in this next year, if you're maybe
Yeah,
just about to graduate, you know?
I think especially when you're early on in your career, literally just about to graduate, being flexible is really key because every organization uses a different framework, have different programming language preferences, whatever the case might be. You might be working on a completely different product. It's totally case by case. I've spoken to um, a lot of recent grads, even from like a graduate level, that says the majority of their learning happens when they land their first role because you have to learn the framework of the organization you're at. So I agree wholly with Simon.
Yeah. What would you say programming wise, what do you think are the programming languages that are going to be the most important or maybe climbing up there when you're talking about these new tech?
Right. I think the primary programming language in AI is Python.
Hmm.
It's been that case for a while, and but beyond that, I mean, if we're going to have this generative AI conversation, what I would also say is that with AI paired programming with things like GitHub Copilot, you can transfer between languages so much more seamlessly. And so if you know the principles of one language, whether or not it's Python or not, you can add a
Hmm.
prompt and and rather than having to code from scratch and kind of move between two languages, you can validate. Obviously, the core of that programming, that creativity comes from the developer still, but it really adds a huge boost. And it's almost like you're never starting with a blank page. It's a powerful
That
tool.
it's that is so magical to see, like the translation feature of Copilot. It is just crazy. So, what do you think in terms of the web, Simon? What sort of things do you think that people should focus on for web type projects? I guess.
So I think the current stories are all still very JavaScript centric,
Hmm.
especially on the front end, but frequently on the server side. There are lots of people going between JavaScript and Python. There are people using Python on the server side. I think Python is everywhere.
Mm.
Um, I think, though, most of what's happening on the web these days is people are taking other people's work, other people's frameworks, projects, and sort of repurposing them to fit particular needs.
Hmm.
So, I think with the AI stuff, I think most people aren't going to be setting up their own AI models for work on the
Mm.
web. They'll be connecting to it through APIs and JavaScript and all of these kinds of things. So that piece, I don't think has changed. It's more just what are we going to be integrating this year?
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head there when you mention APIs, because I think what people don't realize is that a lot of these tools have really strong APIs behind them. So a lot of the tools that we have seen that people are already using, and like last week I had this sort of like contest to pick my new profile picture for LinkedIn, and I use one of those phone applications. Now that phone application is using the APIs. I think it was Stable Diffusion's API in order to generate me all these artwork sort of drawn versions of my image. So I had to submit like about 10 to 20 images, and then it goes and it gives you a lot of options. And so if you follow my feed, you would see that I put like 20 of them up and so for people to pick, and I picked one. But that's an app that is generating a ton of opportunities and money from just using the API. So I think like if you're a web developer, that's the smart move right now. Go take a look at not just what it's doing, but what does the API look like? How hard is it to take that and sort of work with it to develop something based up on it? So I think if you can look for those opportunities, that's what's going to sort of set you apart and put you in a good position for this next year. So let's see. Let's say that I got a stressed person that asked me a question earlier on the week, and I feel for this person. What will the job? So this actually I got it from YouTube, and this gentleman said, "What will the job market after 4 years? What will be the job market after 4 years? Please tell me, should I take a computer science major at college or not? Because ChatGPT is giving me the creeps." Simon, I have to admit, it's also given me the creeps. So, what would you tell somebody like this?
Well, I mean, first, it's always healthy to approach new technologies, especially technologies that turn everything upside down, with some caution.
Hmm.
Uh, GitHub's Copilot and Chat GPT certainly have people worried, kind of that continuing conversation about what technology will do to our jobs. But I think there's something else crucial to remember about software development in particular. Writing the code is a relatively small part of what we do. Planning, testing, integrating with a variety of other tools, all that API stuff I just mentioned is a lot of the work. And there's a classic problem in code where reading other people's code is frequently challenging. Your own code turns into other people's code after about a year. You don't remember it anymore. And all that generated code, which admittedly is, in my experience, been pretty clean code, so not terrible, but is code that someone else wrote. So we're all going to have to figure out what's wrong with it, how to explore it. There's always something wrong in the code, even if it's just old. So we're still going to have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I think like maybe what I would say is just don't worry about what it's going to do because what people are telling you is going to do is probably going to be a little bit different. But just get used to the technology because I can surely say it's coming. It's going to affect you in some way. So better that you be prepared. What would you tell somebody like this, Natalie? Do you have any good
I
advice?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree. You know, when we think about this type of technology, of course, we want to do it responsibly and implement it with ethics in mind, all of that. But I'm going to lean on my favorite metaphor and say I don't know how old this YouTube commenter is, but there was a time when graphing calculators were not in classrooms, but it changed the way that teachers taught math, and that's I think what we're going to see is that AI paired programming is going to be a tool that we use uh, when we learn the principles of programming and how we apply it. But I don't think it's. I think he's got a safe bet coming for comp sci major.
Yeah, really. And no matter what industry you're in, I mean, start exploring what the tools can do, and be the person that I always found that I'm somebody who came from like the design world to the web world. Be that person that knows what to do, knows how to talk to the Chat GPT. That brings me to another question. Like one of the things that I find challenging, Natalie, is when I work with something like Chat GPT, is just being able to tell it properly what I mean, because I feel like when I'm just thinking about a problem, I tend to think of it knowing what I already know. And I found that when I'm talking to ChatGPT or anything else, I say something and it always gets it wrong, but it's like garbage in, garbage out. It's not the computer's fault. It's just the fact that I wasn't communicating properly. So, do you have any tips for maybe how to get the most out of these things?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really fascinating. I mean, the easiest tip is to keep playing with it and to keep playing with the language you input. But like with anything, the algorithm is only as good as the data it's trained on. So when it comes to to refining your prompts, it's really interesting to see how language is kind of transforming to mold within ChatGPT or Dall-E. But using, setting very specific parameters and using adjectives to get a cleaner output is kind of what you kind of have to play around with. But yeah.
Yeah, Simon, as you've been playing around with this, perhaps in more of a programming sort of environment, what do you think works, and when do you think it maybe, you should write your comments a little bit better?
It's, I mean, I think we're still figuring it out, and I think it varies kind of wildly by which tools you're using. Um, with GitHub Copilot, it feels much gentler. I don't feel like I'm having to like sit and think about what can I do to make this thing produce the right code. It's
Hmm.
sort of watching what I'm doing and working with it, which is a different style of making this go. Um, Most of the conversation I've seen with people on the web who are really trying to make AI produce something specific for use for publication is kind of getting back to that whole SEO story and coming up with more and more creative ways to tell the same story. which is less a programming story and maybe more of a marketing story, but definitely gets done through programs.
Yeah, I found that, this sounds really silly, but I found that ChatGPT is more conversational. So sometimes as I'm trying to figure things out, I feel like it's a great it's almost like I'm programming with a psychologist. Laying down on the couch and going, ChatGPT, here's a couple of thoughts I have about this, and maybe do me some research on this. What do you think about? Like, it's really, I guess that's why it's named ChatGPT. Like, it's very conversational. Whereas when I'm working with something like, GitHub Copilot, it's very much about the code, and it understands my code better. Like, it looks at the thing that I'm doing, it looks at the language that I'm using, and it looks at perhaps some of the other files that I'm working with, and it's able to give me suggestions. So the thing about Copilot is that it tends to give you like about 10 suggestions, or you can ask it, give me some suggestions, and it's 10 solutions to the specific coding problem. So maybe a good tip is start with ChatGPT when you're kind of conceptualizing. It can really help you like summarize. You can ask it questions, and then once you have an idea, then you can really use Copilot to just nail down, hey, is this the code I should be using? I've definitely been going to Stack Overflow a lot less than what I used to. So over the Christmas break, I used this ChatGPT to write a utility for this like slideshow framework that I have. And the thing is, it gave me some good stuff. And it also gave me some bad stuff. So part of it was I didn't know how to ask the question. So can you speak about where some of these tools are? How useful are they? And when should people know enough not to just use whatever it's giving them?
Yeah, it's always, yeah. Here's some code. Is it any good? It's always the toughest question in programming. I mean, we've dealt with it. We deal with it every time we use somebody else's libraries or frameworks as well. But we tend to be a lot closer to the code that we're working with that was generated by Copilot or a more interactive API. Um, I think we're going to have kind of a renaissance of testing tools.
Hmm.
We are good about we can we can ask these tools to give us suggestions, paths forward. I think that the people who have gotten really accustomed to testing all of their code and not actually trusting it without a test are going to have kind of an intrinsic advantage. They'll be able to, have a test ready to go. They'll be able to bring in code from one of these systems, run it against a bunch of different scenarios to make sure that what they asked for is really what they wanted, and then go ahead. So I think, we have tools that already let us do this. I think test-driven development has been a catchphrase for 20 years or something. But I think we're going to see a reshuffling of priorities, of skills that really help as we go forward into applying these techniques.
So Natalie, here's what it feels like. Have you ever had a friend who gives you like advice, but he or she's like super confident, but they're also wrong? And they're able. It's like when I talk to ChatGPT or even Copilot, I feel like I'm talking to one of these friends that they are very confident, but also extremely wrong. It's possible that what they're telling you is not true. And do you feel that that's because? Is it because it's actually looking at code from people, and people are just often wrong about stuff? Like, what is it about these things that are giving
I,
us good and bad stuff?
that's certainly part of it. The other part is that because it's AI, people think that there's no physical manpower involved behind it. It takes not only a lot of computing power, but a lot of manual processes in order to get these algorithms trained. These data sets don't enter themselves. And so when we think about ChatGPT, it's like Simon saying, all of these are tools. They are not the answer. And the main reason is because of the fact that there are natural human biases or just normal process workflows that aren't always immediate. And a very easy one that people were kind of using as an example is that if you asked ChatGPT to give you information on Queen Elizabeth, it was actually trained on data before she passed away. So
Hmm.
it's not correct, and it's not correct all the time. And so absolute validation and testing needs to happen. I actually started noticing, though, when I would ask ChatGPT a question, it would give me a disclaimer at the end recently. I don't know if that's happening for everyone, but it would say, of course, there are other ways in which you can answer this or provide this information, so
You're right.
there,
It's been trying to cover itself, I think, a little bit too much.
it is.
I think I'm gonna call it Chad GPT whenever it's wrong from now on. It's gonna be like some confident friend that I have named Chad. Yeah, that's good. So what? And speaking about like, I mentioned the app that I was using. It's doing like millions of dollars in business already. I think that some people are interested in what are some of the business opportunities or potentials for using this to leverage some of these new technologies. What do you think, Natalie?
What are the business opportunities for
Yeah.
generative AI?
Hmm.
Oh, there are so many. What I really think is that there are so many ways that generative AI is going to transform the industry, especially when we think about developers. And what I think about DevOps, as development will scale, coding output will increase. And so what does that mean for QA and for operations? I think that's a really big potential transformation in the industry, and not even just for coders, but the entire tech org, the entire software development lifecycle. So that's one. Another huge opportunity that I see is the need for potential roles centered around algorithmic auditing. Uh, Again, that testing conversation we were having. When we speak back to the EU AI Act, we're going to see a need for third party auditing consultants, roles, companies. And I think there is a huge explosion of growth
Hmm.
in that kind of job function.
Hmm. Any thoughts about this topic, Simon? What do you think are some of the places people can, I don't know, make a living or have some more opportunities? What have you seen?
I really like the way that auditing piece kind of fits with the testing I was suggesting earlier.
Hmm.
Um, but the big challenge, I mean, I think it's obvious that companies are racing to put this in their products. We just haven't figured out how that fits with everything else that we do. I think the what you're saying about Chat GPT, the way that it speaks with a lot too much confidence, and then at the end has this kind of funky disclaimer. Um, we're going to be spending time figuring out how to evaluate what that content is like, how confident we should be with it, and find a
Hmm.
balance between that really confident sounding conversational voice and and there might be other things that have changed since I had last looked at it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's weird because I feel like I'm often talking to it while I'm using ChatGPT. Like I'm having a conversation and I'm like thanking it, like and then it does do that. I saw, but I really hadn't noticed that it does apologize or like, oh, this is not. I asked it, for example, for like a list of comedians, and this is not an exhaustive list. There's much more that you could do here. I'm like, I know, chat. Don't worry, I got you, man. Yeah, I'm super excited about what's going on, and I think that we just need to sort of realize that we're in a place where it's a new technology. Like when the web was first out and people didn't really know what to do with it, I feel like it's a spot like that, and there's going to be all these opportunities, people figuring out proper testing, but then there's a lot of legal ramifications to it, so there's a lot of opportunities there. There's a
Can
lot
I
of
say
opportunities everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the example of the web is perfect here because not everyone is going to have to be an AI or machine learning engineer in order to leverage this. And so what
Hmm.
it's really going to allow is almost like a low code, no code solution for a lot of folks to who aren't even anywhere close to being a developer, but they could be working on a completely tertiary project and see that AI can make an impact in their process and their product, whatever the case is, and they're going to be able to find a way to leverage that, improve it. Obviously, all of that conversation around regulations and frameworks are going to have to exist. But even going back to that YouTube comment, we don't need to be concerned of whether or not you want to be a comp sci major, but the fact is that you're going to be able to leverage all of these tools in one way or another if you want. So
Yes. Good point. I mean, I think that this is where people sort of miss the point of ChatGPT. They think of it, oh, it's just this thing that is going to take everyone's job. I always listen. It's not going to take your job. It's not that good. It's what do they say? Like 80% sort of accurate. That's a scary percentage to be that confident in. Like, if I was only 80% accurate, I wouldn't be as confident sounding as ChatGPT. So maybe they can fix that. But I think all the big opportunities are going to be around the technology. How do you use this? Even I think in training people, how do you ethically use something like this, and then how do you leverage it in what you're working on? I mean, I'm scared when I ask it questions sometimes because I know, like, well, what if it's wrong about something that I asked it? So I know it's wrong at least 20% of the time. That's not enough confidence to trust it right now. So people that figure all that stuff out. So normally here we would go to the Q&A, but for some reason my interface is not allowing me to pull up comments and stuff. So we do have some questions from people in just a regular chat. So let's see if I'm gonna go ahead and switch to the Q&A sort of graphic, just to note that we are in this section, and I will sort of read through some of these comments. So people talking about, are you using Copilot? I am certainly using Copilot. It's really wonderful. I feel like I'm not sure that I could. Well, I think like I would be just checking a lot more Google and Stack Overflow if I didn't have it. And now that I have it, I use that less and less. What's your experience, Simon, with coding and having something like Copilot?
So I've mostly just been experimenting.
Hmm.
Most of my recent coding for work was really system administration stuff, which was really specific to my server. So I'm not sure I want to ask broad questions of an AI that wasn't trained on it. Um, I feel like I have to relearn how to code. I mean, I've become very used to visiting Google and Stack Overflow and
Hmm.
friends. Um, it's nice in some ways to do less of that. It also reminds me that I have done forever the same evaluation of Stack Overflow code. Is this any good? Does this really solve my problem?
Yeah.
Um, I think it's really kind of a similar set of questions I have to answer using it, just in a, I don't know, less personal context.
Yeah, I think it's sort of in between like Stack Overflow and Google and also like IntelliSense. Like it's giving you the ability to get to code quicker, but the validation in Stack Overflow is a little bit better because they have that upvote downvote kind of functionality, and they have a point system that encourages people to participate. So I feel like it's still useful, but you go to it less because sometimes like all you need is, how do I do like two linear gradients with like, a transparent and also an image on top? Like that's the kind of question that you can get to the code pretty quickly with something like either Chat GPT. The difference is Copilot just gives you code. Chat GPT, you can lay it out on a couch and ask it questions, throw some, ask it for some humor every now and then. Actually, you can ask it to give you an answer like in a humorous way, which is a lot of fun, and you can actually end up having a lot of fun with it. So Steve's saying here that he sees a lot of heavy growing interest in academia and in HR relating areas, writing essays, jobs and stuff like that. Do you have any sort of anything you want to say about that, Natalie? About this interest in like HR, I guess, writing. Oh, so scary, right? What are teachers going to ask for now?
I actually have an answer to this. I have some teacher
Oh.
friends who are aware of the impact that this could have on students. The thing is, what is very impressive about ChatGPT is that it would pass a plagiarism test.
Hmm.
Yes, it's trained only on content that exists out in the world. It's not creating knowledge, right? It's not a scholar, but at the same point, it is able to write originally. And so a lot of teachers are now requiring in-person essays handwritten on paper within the hour of the class versus take-home, essay requests. So I mean, I know that is certainly a way around it within the classroom. I'm not really sure what the commenter or the question asker means about HR, but as we
Hmm.
all know, it can certainly touch every industry, including marketing, for instance. So maybe from like a job description perspective, that's certainly
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, I think maybe in applying for a job, like you need like a cover letter. I mean, I think it
Well,
would be a
sure.
fantastic tool for that. Or like maybe I think it would be, I have a hard time writing that kind of stuff.
Right.
So maybe analyzing like potential employees and going through like lists, like that's a great thing that, because it is great at summarizing. And so I think like when you have to go through like hundreds of resumes, maybe some sort of uh, objective way of looking at candidates, eliminating some bias, maybe that could be an opportunity for someone in that HR field. So that's pretty interesting. Let's see. So somebody says, Artem says, ask for me, Copilot or any other AI-based services should be used to speed up development and never to learn a programming language. I think Simon and I would both probably agree on that. So also, somebody, Alberts, says, I think ChatGPT is the finest tool for creating a learning path for yourself or others. You can go into detail about what to learn, how to better learn, and ask it to create your answers. That's an interesting sort of perspective there. I mean, I think that it's shockingly conversational. So I think you definitely can ask it things, and it just feels like you're talking to a person. So maybe like the solution for introverts who have a hard time, talking to somebody, they could just go to ChatGPT like me, and I'll try talking to it a little bit more about my career. So that's kind of I think Steve says writing performance reviews. Now I've seen some tools, and this is another interesting thing that will actually try to detect if an AI wrote this. Have you seen that? Like there's actual tools now that because people can just write essays, they'll analyze your writing and see was this created by a person. So it's going to be like the battle of the AIs, I guess, in the future.
I was in line at the store and students behind talking about, well, first you get, say,
I
from
think you're
ChatGPT, you run it through another AI, kind of change the phrasing a little bit, and that
think
makes
you're
it
breaking up a little bit,
so.
Simon. So I think that what he was saying was that there are now like competing AIs that try to like outdo the original AIs that were writing. So you can like maybe pass it through two things. Yeah, I feel like that's a losing battle. Like if you write something and then somebody writes an AI detection tool, then somebody will write another tool that randomizes it. And, I think that one thing that will happen is you really have to um, rethink what it is you want from somebody writing an essay. Like if you want them to be able to show knowledge, how do you test for something like that, and not have to depend on a big essay? Because I mean, I imagine if student, this is the great battle. Like the students will be writing all their essays, and then the teachers will have something that just grades all the essays, and then nobody will learn anything, right? Because it'll just be the computers like fighting with and against each other to have all the questions and solutions and stuff. So, all right, so that's enough serious stuff. It's now time for this segment that I called Random Access. I know you guys are very excited. This is like I usually let you know what's happening with the show, but this is definitely something you've never heard before. And I have to say that in this particular week, I used ChatGPT for a lot of these questions. So they might be just 80% correct or 80% annoying. But are you guys ready?
Yeah.
How are you doing, Simon? You back? Yeah, it looks like seeing all your resolution back again. I'm sorry, we had like a little glitch there. Oh, now I can't hear
Hear you
you
now.
very
I'm having
well.
weird connection issues.
Okay, well, it'll be all up to Natalie then. This will
Oh,
be great. Okay. So here I go with the question number one, and you guys can obviously answer your opinions in the chat, and let me know what you think about the questions. Okay. Number one, in the movie Transcendence, a scientist's consciousness is uploaded into a computer after he's assassinated. If you could upload your consciousness into a computer, what kind of hardware would you choose? And these questions are all going to be, you can add your own if you don't see something that would work for you. So you Mac PC, Linux, mobile device, Raspberry Pi. I think that would be an interesting choice. Some sort of robot, but I wrote that it has to be like, it can't be like R2D2 because that would be too cool. You have to pick something that exists like a Roomba or Spot from Boston Dynamics. That's that thing that looks like a little dog that's very cute and dances and stuff. Or would you go for a Docker container, Natalie?
I would not pick four. I would not pick a robot. I would want to be something where I could like access the internet and therefore be
Hmm.
everywhere.
So maybe like a Docker container cloud.
Yeah,
Natalie knows everything.
yeah, I want to be everywhere.
I
Kind of like
feel like
Ultron, you know?
that's great. Yeah, Ultron. That's a great choice. What about you, Simon? Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think I'd go with three.
Three.
Uh,
See, that makes sense for you, knowing
it'd be
you.
small and portable, but still kind of self-contained, not just everywhere like the cloud.
See, that's a good answer because you can hide places like they can put you in somewhere that people would know, and you would also get like great connectivity to like hardware. So who knows? Like you would start with a Raspberry Pi, but then you would end up like with Iron Giant. Like you would just end up building yourself up to whatever you wanted. See, I don't know what I would pick. I really like Spot, the Boston Dynamics robot. I like that it's mobile. I'm in between you guys. Like I don't really I feel like if I was everywhere, people would just like I would constantly be fighting like the hackers. They would try to, destroy me. So I feel like if I was Spot, the Boston Dynamics like dog robot, I'd be able to defend myself a little bit, with tools and stuff. So I'm going to go with an existing robot and Spot specifically, but they have other robots as well. All right, good answers. You guys are doing good so far. Let's see what question number 2 is. All right, so for question number 2, in the movie Ready Player One, humans are able to control an avatar through a neural interface. If you were given the opportunity to control an avatar, which one of these would you choose? And again, you can choose something other than this. So the options here are Godzilla. I mean, and I'm claiming that one because that would be awesome, be huge. Have like fire breathing, I think. No, it's like laser. He has like laser breath. GLaDOS is from the game Portal. So hilarious. That game is the funniest game ever, so you should play it. Samus from Metroid, Wonder Woman or some other superhero, Steve from Minecraft, or a Green Lantern. Could be any other superhero. I'm going to go with Simon on this one first. What would
I
you
was
pick?
going to go with Godzilla, but you took it, so I guess I'll have
Well,
to say
you
Rodan
could
or
be
something.
Mecha Godzilla.
Rodan or Mothra. I mean,
Yeah,
flying
yeah,
would be.
Mothra. That would be pretty cool. What about you, Natalie?
Maybe I would go with my OG avatar. I would be Kirby. You know, I think
Kirby. Oh,
that would just go all the way back
Kirby is
before.
yeah, I feel like Kirby is one of those characters that is always like you got to watch out for. Like, he looks really cute, but he's very, very powerful in that game. He could do
Exactly.
so much damage. I mean, he's a great character to play in that Nintendo game where you play with all the characters against each other. I forgot what it's called, but
Super
it's a great
Smash.
character. Yeah, Super Smash Brothers. Yeah, so very I don't know what you call that, but deceitfully sort of
Yeah,
powerful character. Yeah.
just leave me alone and we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. Good answer. All right, final question. So in the movie Inception, a team of experts enter, and this is the funniest questions of all, I think. A
I'm
team of
really curious
experts
what your
enters
prompt was.
and say what?
I'm really
I'm
curious
sorry.
what your prompt was to get all of these.
I know, right? I know. In the movie Inception, a team of experts enters the dreams of others to extract information and plant ideas. If you had the ability to enter someone's dream through an AI, who would you like to enter the dream and what would you plant? I think this is a great question with a lot of fantastic options. I know which one I would go for here. And I obviously, since I had a chance to think of it, I know what I would ask, but I'll let you go this time because I think I killed the last option. So let's go, I guess, with I think Simon was first last time, so I'll go with Natalie now.
Oh man, it's because I'm on the spot, but I love her. She's a comedian also on. Oh shoot, because I can't think of her name off the top of my head. I'm going to say Tina Fey for right now. Come back to me
Tina Fey?
because I
Okay. Okay, come back to okay. We'll give you some time to think about who you were thinking about. Or maybe we could just put it in the chat later. Simon, do you have any clues here? Any of these, or would you go with somebody else here?
I think it's with Sacha Baron Cohen. I mean, it
That
kind of
it.
doesn't matter what I plan; it will turn into something completely bizarre.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
That's a good
He
option, I
just
think.
has
He is
so many
hilarious,
personalities.
crazy. Yeah, this is why my choice here would be Gary Busey. and I would implant in him to run for president because he's just like a crazy person. I talked to my wife about this option, and she said what you should do is going to somebody else and implant Gary Busey into them. Like take Gary Busey's personality and put it in somebody else. Like I don't know, somebody crazy. I think that was a better answer, but I would still go with Gary Busey because he's hilarious. He's just like a crazy person. She says she always confuses Gary Busey with like Nick Nolte because they're both like wild. So, but yeah, that would be. Did you remember at all, Natalie, who you wanted to pick? So,
No, I didn't.
all right, no
I
big.
didn't
We'll
Google
we'll
hard
get to
enough.
it.
But maybe I'll say something like my mother and then
Oh, there
implant
you
that I
go.
am indeed her favorite daughter, you know?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's always great. But then could create problems in the futures. So,
Okay.
all right. So, sorry. Go ahead. Oh,
Never mind.
all right. So I guess let's keep going. So we tell me a little bit, Simon, about the courses that you have in the library. Like if somebody wanted to be prepared for this sort of new 2023, what sort of courses would you think you would ask them to take, even regardless of what happens in 2023?
Well, okay, yes. I think I picked these a bit with an eye to 2023. One of them is applies everywhere, which is writing your tech resume. It's
Hmm.
Emma Bastian did a great course on the different aspects you need to think about when you're presenting yourself to a company that may
Hmm.
want to hire you. She really kind of walks through the step by step, and I think it's easy to actually like watch the course and work on your resume at the same time.
Hmm.
That one's timeless. It applies before 2023. It applies after 2023. I'm pretty sure. Um, Looking at a more specific, like what would I like to make sure that someone that I am hiring right now is ready for in 2023? I would shift to something more like our technology and design ethics course, where Morten Rand Hendrickson goes through a bunch of different systems for evaluating the ethics of different actions. And it's not just like these are the ways you should think about it. He really shows like how you can work through these problems in a group, how you can work with other people to come up with better and more ethical, more effective, more thoroughly considered ideas.
Hmm.
Generally, if people watch this course and take it seriously, I'll be a lot less concerned about what they do with computers and AI generally.
And I have to say that Emma Bostian curse so well produced. Like it's a really good production values from our fantastic team. I mean, really good camera work in there. All right, Natalie. So putting you on the spot next, what will you pick from the library?
Yeah, I think looking into 2023, a course that we just published was one by Sujay King Liu, who is the dean of the UC Berkeley School of Engineering. Her course is Responsible AI Principles and Practical Applications, and it really speaks to mitigating risks of AI while maximizing its benefits. And it's certainly worth the 1 hour of your time to watch, especially as we think about how we apply AI in the future, um, and maintaining responsibility and ethics and taking into considerations those frameworks we're going to have to um, pull in at some point. The
Yeah, she
the
also
other
has a
one,
couple of experts I think that she interviews in here, which is
uh,
pretty cool. Some good insight from other people as well. Sorry.
oh no, it's wonderfully research based, data driven, and a lot of her colleagues also within this space speak to their expertise, especially within
Mhm.
that ethics piece. You know, it's a wonderful course.
Super. And I see stuff on HR like people were asking. So if somebody's curious about that, and also healthcare, which is another under expected, I guess, maybe section in AI that could have this huge impact. There's a lot of work happening in that space. So what's the other course?
The other course is really more geared towards developers, those who are looking to see how generative AI can really transform their work. We talked about it a lot, but we have an AI paired programming with GitHub Copilot course with Ronnie Shear. It's a wonderful course that really shows the power of that tool, how to use it, some tips and tricks. Over time, GitHub has really gotten a lot of information to see that people who have integrated Copilot are really able to stay focused, be more productive, and reduce the number of repetitive tasks, just really improving their workflow. So if you want to learn the tool and kind of see, just start playing with it, this is a great course to start with.
Cool. And it also has like Python and JavaScript, I'm sorry, in there. So that both of the languages that you said, I think we're making like the biggest impact. So super, super awesome. Thank you so much for coming to the first episode of what I hope can be like something really fun. I know that I really appreciate having you guys here first. So if everybody wants to check more information about you guys, this is where you can connect with Simon, me, and Natalie. And we're going to be doing one of these every week. If you want to keep track of what we're doing, you can go to the it's TFI Tech hashtag. I wanted something unique. And so when I did TFI, I think it already had a lot of stuff in it. So check that hashtag and also Learn Tech with LinkedIn. That hashtag, and you can follow these on LinkedIn. And those will have a ton of resources beyond just what's on the show. So Learn Tech with LinkedIn is a great hashtag to follow, and you can keep track of everything happening in the show, but then also lots of other stuff that's going on in the library. So next time, also, we're going to be doing this once a week, and I'm super, super excited about the next week's episode. We have a fantastic individual. Her name is Pinar Sehan Dermidag. And she's an outstanding lady, she heads up a company that creates some tools for entertainment, so visualizing entertainment, generative AI. Maybe you can speak a little bit more about her, Natalie. You have a little bit more experience with
Yeah,
her.
absolutely. Pinar is, yes, a founder of a consulting firm and has lived within the intersection of tech and creative for well over a decade, and has worked within the generative AI space, especially within the entertainment industry, for about the same amount of time. So she has certainly been at it from the forefront and has played a huge role in how the creative industries apply. She's a great leading voice in the space.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. So thanks everyone for coming, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. I'm planning on doing some giveaways next time. So if you do sign up for the next week's episode, which you can do at this link right here, the go.rabo.org/TFITEP02, then I'm gonna see if ChatGPT can help me pick out a winner from a list. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. It might end up being a huge project that ends up digging into the API. So thank you so much, guys, for being here. And hopefully at least you'll be able to be a part of it later on. I'm sure you'll be back on for some things.
Can't
All right,
wait.
take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.